The Walking Dead generally is seen as a shitty show that should have ended a long time ago, and while I do agree it should have ended a long time ago, I also think it has enough redeeming qualities to still be enjoyable, or at least watchable, and it doesn't deserve all the shit it gets. Then again, I haven't seen it get a lot of shit recently, but that's probably because no one's watching it. Robert Kirkman and Tony Moore started writing the Walking Dead comics in 2003. Kirkman tried selling his comic idea to publishing company Image Comics, but they said they weren't interested in just another zombie story, so Kirkman lied and said, actually, the zombies are like aliens and the virus is caused by like fucked up alien shit. So, but you only find out about that later in the comics, which is not true, Mr. Kirkman, if that even is your real name. In 2010, Kirkman started production on the TV adaptation of the comics, which is what I'm going to be talking about in this video right now. There's going to be some spoilers for the TV show, so if you haven't seen it yet, probably get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck away from my video, you stinky little baby, you little poo-poo baby. Ew, do I smell poop? No, it's just you. At some point in 2012, co-founder of the comics Tony Moore tried suing Kirkman for tricking him into surrendering the rights for the comics, which was not true, so Kirkman sued him back. Moore peed his pants a little bit, and Moore was never heard from again. I'm kidding. He illustrated for Marvel comic Hulk Fiends in 2019. I'm sorry, that's just really funny. That's just really funny to me. Imagine like illustrating for one of the biggest comic series ever. I mean, Marvel is also big, but imagine illustrating for The Walking Dead, and then you go and make Hulk Fiends, dude. Kirkman recently wrapped up the comics, but is still to this day working on the TV show, which has been going on for almost 10 years now. And some of the criticism it gets is that it's just been going on for too long and it's dragged out for too long. But I think Kirkman put it best himself when he said,
because I mean, I tell people in interviews, how long's the book gonna go? And I'm like, oh, it's gonna go forever. What are you talking about? And then someone says, you've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm like, but it feels like I've just gotten started. Does that mean I'm gonna do this for 50 years? Because that's not cool, that's sad. I don't wanna do this for 50 years.
In the 10 years that The Walking Dead has been on TV, has gathered quite a following, which usually differs between a lot and absolutely fucking nothing depending on the season. This following has had some rightful criticisms, and I'm gonna talk about some of the criticisms that the following had of the TV show and some criticisms that I have of the production and the TV show. Great segue, Morty. Thanks, Morty. One of the things I definitely think went wrong is what they did to Chandler Riggs. Chandler played Carl, or Coral if your name is Rick Grimes, and he started that role when he was 11 years old. He kept playing this role until he was 17 when the producers offered him a 2-year renewal of his contract, which was great, and Riggs was very excited about this, and had even bought a home closer to work. Then in June of that same year, Riggs and his parents were called in for a meeting with production. In this meeting, he was told that his character would soon be dying off and he would be fired from the show. The reason behind this being it would motivate his character's father to look for peace, etc., which did work for a couple episodes until they decided to kill this character off too, but we'll get to that. Riggs was rightfully very upset about this decision, and his parents have spoken publicly about how the producer of the show, I'm forgetting his name as we speak, Scott Gimple, really fucked him over. Follow Chandler on Twitch. I think his name is Cash Handler or something. Follow Chandler Riggs on Twitch. Then there's the minor incident on set with Ryan Hurst. Ryan plays Beta Cockmail, who on the show wears a leather trench coat with 2 layers underneath it in the summer in Georgia. Ew! He got heat stroke and had to be rushed to the hospital, but luckily felt better quickly. Regarding the Rick Grimes death I mentioned, it was more of a fake death for a little sensation than a real death. In the show, we see Rick Grimes quote-unquote die, but a few scenes later we see him being picked up by a helicopter and brought somewhere else. Kirkman said this might lead to a spin-off movie about the continued life of Rick Grimes, which I think is a bit of a douchey cash grab, especially to Riggs, who had to be killed off and fired for this to happen. Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick, was technically written off the show, but with the pussy option for him to come back if he ever wanted to. Then lastly, there's the tragic death of stuntman cast member John Bernecker, who died from a stunt from a very high building. Austin Emilio, who plays Two-Face ripoff Dwight, was with him at the time when he was about to make the stunt. Emilio asked Bernecker if he had ever done a stunt like that before, and Bernecker said he had never done one from that high and he was quite nervous. Bernecker was about to make the jump and jumped halfway over the railing when he tried to grab onto the railing, but sadly failed and fell to his death. In court, it was argued that there was just not enough planning and coordination for the stunt, which is ultimately what led to Bernecker's death. And on that super happy fun note, Chapter 3, baby. In recent years, the show's following has kind of dwindled to a point where you can't even really call it a following. It's more like when you go on World of Warcraft and you press follow on someone's character, and you just kind of see where it goes, but you don't actively do anything. There's many reasons why people say they stopped watching the show, but here's some of the biggest ones I find. Number 1. The show is too slow paced. A lot of fans will tell you they stopped watching the show when the Alexandria storyline was happening. For them, this was too much talking and not enough action, and it was just boring. Or some say they stopped watching during the Negan storyline, which they say dragged on for too long, or again, was a lot of talking. Number 2, the show gets very repetitive. After 10 years of writing and television, you're bound to run into the same character arc a couple times, or just kind of run out of ideas. A lot of fans say the show repeats the same story with antagonists, or that it's just the same tropes a lot of the time, and that it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Number 3, it's not at all like the comics. As a fan, you've grown to love a certain part of the story on paper and you would really like for it to come back on screen, but oftentimes that just doesn't happen. The show will sometimes just kill off one character and let another character take his place in the story, or just get rid of that part of the story altogether. Number 4, they kill off cool characters. Like with a lot of shows, some characters eventually just have to leave the story either because of real life reasons or because it's just written that way. But with The Walking Dead, a lot of the time they will just kill off beloved characters for some shock value, like my man Carl. What up, Carl? I'd just be dead and shit. Haha, that sucks. And all of this is just aside from stupid little plot holes like, why don't they ever do this more often? Or does Daryl just have fucking infinity on his crossbow or what? Or why don't they just wear knight's armor? I think that would be fucking epic. And these are all valid points and I agree with some of them to a certain extent, but now I'd like to talk about what makes the show good, or at least watchable. So first of all, I'd like to say that I definitely do agree the show is a little slow paced, so I'm just gonna cross that one off the list. Bye, number 1. Get up on out of here. Go cry to your mommy. Number 2, I also agree with to a certain extent. I think the show gets a little repetitive, but it's forgivable. Yes, you do have some of the same relationship type stories or antagonist type stories, but it's still different characters. Just because you've had this cheese platter before doesn't mean you won't enjoy your second cheese platter. Just put some different cheese on it. And maybe you're lactose intolerant, so put some sausages on it. Look at this variety of different sausages. Holy crap, dude. That's so many sausages, but it's still the same platter underneath. Number 3, I completely disagree with. I think the show is absolutely separate from the comics, but I think Kirkman put it best himself when he said,
I really don't subscribe to you're ruining that comic I loved by adapting it into a terrible movie. Right. You know, it's like, no, you just don't watch that. It's going to be a DVD that you don't have to buy. Right. You can go back and read your book and it's still the same. It hasn't changed.
And lastly, number 4. While I do agree sometimes the wrong characters get killed off, I also think that sometimes it's necessary for the story. Like when Glenn died, I think that sucked. I loved Glenn and I think he was a great character. And when he died, I hated it. But it also made a huge change in Maggie's character. She became way more powerful and, in my opinion, a more interesting character. And I think the show still has some great characters that you can root for, like Michonne, who has a hard time dealing with Rick's death, but still does a great job leading her group. Or Father Gabriel, who was a shitty-ass character at first, but turned into a really interesting guy. Or Eugene, who has a bit of a hard time fitting in, but ultimately just wants what's best for his friends. Or Negan, who started off as a villain, but turned into somewhat of a good guy and sort of a father for Judith. Or my personal favorite, King Ezekiel, who has a fucking tiger. And there's also the guy from Fantastic Beasts for some reason, who doesn't have a tiger. In conclusion, I think The Walking Dead has some great and interesting storylines to follow, even if it's been going on for a little too long. I definitely don't think the show should have ended after season 4, but I do think it has changed a bit. In the end, this is a show about community and people trying to survive together, and it's kinda ironic and sad how its community has kinda turned against it. I personally still think it's a great show, and I would love it if more people gave it a chance or gave it another chance, but that's completely up to you. I just hope I was able to inform you on why I personally really like this show, and while it does have some flaws, that it's still a great show to watch, and you can get really into the story and the characters and everything. So I hope some people maybe get back into it or get into it for the first time or not. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm just some guy. I'm just a dude. Hey, it's Morty. It's Morty after the outro. It's after outro Morty, dude. Thanks for watching. I'm wearing red pants today. What do you think of them? If you like them, please leave a little thumbs up.